I'm back after a long time. This is the top 10 series, which was the core content of Sensor Studio. Today, I've picked the top 10 things you should never do if a war breaks out. Let's get right into it. First, number 10, being close to a window. In fact, when an air raid siren goes off, many people get startled and, out of curiosity, go close to the window to watch the air raid or shelling scenes. During the Middle East wars, many people staying in hotels got close to the windows to watch drone air raids. When explosions happened, the glass shattered, and a lot of people were injured by the broken window glass. The explosions caused by bombings or air raids are much more powerful than you might think. Those of you who have served in the military will remember how loud the sound of live ammunition being fired or even gunshots was. Whatever you imagine, you should know it's even louder than that. Therefore, if war breaks out, you should never go near the windows. If an air raid siren goes off, it's best to evacuate to an underground facility. If you can't evacuate to an underground facility, the safest thing to do is to crouch down in a corner as far away from the windows as possible. Number 9 is escaping the city by car. In reality, if war breaks out, roads, ports, and airports will be closed first. The military needs to use them first for conducting the war. And if war breaks out, a huge number of people will try to leave by car. Because of severe traffic jams, you won't even be able to move. Actually, this creates two problems. If you just wait on the road in a traffic jam, the chances of being attacked are very high. If you're just waiting on the road and a bombing or air raid happens, you won't be able to respond and could get hurt. On top of that, if a lot of cars crowd the roads at once, it causes serious problems for military forces trying to move. There could be situations where the military can't move on time. Therefore, it's better to use transportation like bicycles or motorcycles that can quickly move through narrow roads. But even with these, it's best to refrain from going outside because just being outside is dangerous. Attacks will keep happening. So if you have to travel long distances, it will be easier to use a motorcycle or bicycle rather than a car. Number 8 is posting pictures of troop movements on social media. Even right now, there are many cases where people post photos or videos of military units training on social media. But this becomes a very big risk during wartime. It's very easy to analyze and pinpoint locations using videos or photos of troop movements posted on social media. For example, during the war in Ukraine, Chechen troops were discovered by Ukrainian intelligence while broadcasting a TikTok live as they moved, and they were completely wiped out by a Ukrainian military bombardment. That's why posting photos or videos on social media can be valuable information for someone, and that someone could be the enemy. Therefore, you should never upload videos of troop movements. Number 7, rushing outside to look for your family. When war actually breaks out, most people will try to find their family and friends first. But the problem is that almost everyone acts the same way. This is one of the common cases where entire families die together during major disasters. When a disaster strikes, family members wander around trying to find each other. As a result, they often miss each other, fail to find one another, and often end up as casualties. The same thing will likely happen if a war breaks out. Therefore, if a war breaks out, it's important to gather at home and check on the safety of your family members. There are cases where people go outside to look for their family members, but unless your children are very young, if they are in middle or high school and can make their own decisions, it's usually safer to stay inside the house rather than going out to search for them. If you go outside to look for them, the chances of being killed by a bombing or air raid actually increase. And when war breaks out, there's a high chance that communication centers will be hit, making it very likely that you won't even be able to contact anyone. So it's actually better to stay at home, as it increases your chances of survival. Now, you might have this question. You might ask if staying inside the house is dangerous, but actually, staying inside the house can be safer. Steel reinforced concrete buildings can withstand most bombings. If you look at examples from the war in Ukraine, even though there were countless bombings during urban warfare, steel reinforced concrete buildings have shown that they can endure. Buildings don't collapse easily like in the movies. Or before war breaks out, it's important for families to make plans and set rules in advance. Decide ahead of time where to meet if war occurs, what to do if you can't contact each other, and where each person should wait. If one family member can't be reached, the rest of the family shouldn't all go outside to look for them. Especially if the missing family member is an adult who can evacuate on their own, it's important to prioritize everyone's safety. Next, number 6. There are quite a few people who prepare an emergency bag in advance. Getting things ready like water, emergency food, a flashlight, and a power bank can be helpful for evacuation. But the problem is telling people around you that you've prepared a survival bag, or walking around outside with a bag full of supplies. If war breaks out, it may become harder to maintain public order than usual. Since the police and military will be deployed to respond to armed infiltrators and guard key facilities, it will be difficult to maintain normal public security in all areas as usual. It may be hard to do so. Measures such as martial law or movement restrictions may also be implemented, so you should not assume that things will be the same as usual. In this situation, there may be a rush to secure essential supplies such as food, water, and medicine, and in some areas, crimes like theft or looting may occur. At this time, carrying a bag full of survival supplies outside can attract the attention of others. It can be even more dangerous if people around you know that your bag contains items like food, medicine, or batteries. There is also a possibility that someone might try to take your supplies or threaten you. You could end up becoming a walking jackpot. Therefore, it's best to prepare only as much as you need in your survival bag and keep it in a safe place when not in use. If you need to evacuate, it's important to take only the necessary items with you and not unnecessarily let others know where and what you are storing. The supplies you prepared for survival should not become the reason you end up in a dangerous situation. Next is number 5, running away to the mountains. Actually, this is something that quite a lot of people misunderstand. You might ask, isn't it safe to run away to the mountains? That's partly true and partly false. If a war breaks out, military facilities and cities will be the main targets of attacks, so from that perspective, the mountains could be a safe option. The problem is, if a war breaks out, countless armed guerrillas will come down through the mountains. If you're hiding in the mountains at that time and run into armed guerrillas, you won't be able to avoid death. I don't think it will end well. And to survive in the mountains, you need to secure at least food, clothing, and shelter. But especially, securing food is the biggest problem. Some people think you can just eat berries or catch animals in the mountains, but in reality, that's not so easy. It's highly likely that modern people haven't mastered hunting or foraging skills to that extent. You'd be lucky not to die from eating the wrong mushrooms. Also, if war breaks out, even the South Korean military will leave their bases and move to certain areas. But most military units move into the mountains. If they go to cities or their original bases, they're more vulnerable to enemy attacks, so they move to the mountains where it's easier to ambush. But as I mentioned earlier, armed guerrillas might come down, right? There's a chance that the military could mistake you for armed guerrillas. Therefore, staying inside a building is safer than running into the mountains. And since this is a country that has been preparing for war for 70 years, food will eventually be distributed through a rationing system. So staying in the city actually allows you to receive more protection from the government. Next is number 4. It's about spreading fake news on social media. If fake news spreads, it will cause that much confusion in society. A single careless social media post you make could lead to chaos. You shouldn't post things like North Korean troops have arrived nearby even as a joke. On top of that, the government is likely to respond quickly to strictly punish this kind of fake news, so please don't post fake news before you get caught by the military police. It's number 3. Those of you who have served in the military probably already know this. The blackout policy is extremely important. During war, houses with lights on are more likely to be attacked because they're easier to see. That's why you must always turn off the lights at night. Or it's safer to use curtains or blinds. Also, you shouldn't smoke at night because, assuming there are no other lights nearby, the light from a cigarette can be seen from 2 or 3 kilometers away in the dark. It's really visible. For example, during the Korean War, Mao Zedong's son, Mao Anying, died because he lit a fire at night to cook fried rice with eggs. The fire was spotted by an American bomber flying overhead, and that's how he was killed. Really, just having a light on at night is dangerous. Next is number 2. Even if you don't post fake news, there's a high chance that a lot of fake news will be posted on the internet. On top of that, there's also a possibility that the enemy country will spread fake news everywhere. Therefore, you shouldn't trust information posted on the internet so easily. It's safest to only trust official government announcements or statements from news agencies. Please try not to trust information posted on social media. There are also some recent trends seen in wars, such as during the Ukraine war, where the locations of communication centers were tracked and places with frequent mobile phone communication were targeted for airstrikes several times. Just by using the internet, your location can be tracked, so it's best to refrain from accessing the internet as much as possible. This is the most important point. The number 1 mistake is ignoring air raid warnings. Right after a war breaks out, when sirens or emergency alert texts go off, many people will evacuate immediately. However, if the war continues for several days, weeks, or even months, the situation can change. As air raid warnings are repeated, people become accustomed to them and start to think nothing serious will happen, even in the face of danger. That's when they might stop evacuating, but that's exactly when it becomes most dangerous. When an air raid warning goes off, it means there is a real possibility of an attack and evacuation is necessary. Just because there was no damage during previous warnings doesn't guarantee your safety this time. The landing points of missiles or shells can change every time, and it's difficult to predict the scale and direction of an attack. Even if an explosion occurs far away, you can still be harmed by shockwaves, glass shards, or debris from building exterior. When an air raid warning sounds, it's important to first move to the nearest underground shelter or underground space. If it's difficult to evacuate underground, you should move inside a building, stay as far away from windows as possible, and find an interior area. It doesn't matter whether it's day or night. The fact that there haven't been any attacks so far is not a reason either. Especially as the war drags on, becoming complacent about safety can become even more dangerous. At first, people used to evacuate as soon as the sirens went off, but over time they may start to treat the alarms as just another everyday sound. However, getting used to the alarms and the danger actually disappearing are 2 completely different things. Don't assume that your area won't be attacked. If an air raid alarm goes off, your first priority should be to move and take shelter. In a war situation, just a few minutes' decision can affect your survival. I've seen that happen too many times.